Thank you, Mr. President. I will make a contribution based on the substantive issues at hand here, but also on the fact that I was a subject matter of one of the contributions from the Honourable Mark Latham. In terms of value for money, Mr. President, I want to put it on the record. There was a $500,000 loan which Mr. Latham raised in respect of the ETU having loaned money to the ALP using members' money, and the allegation was that the members basically got ripped off, didn't have a clue. Well, let me tell you, that loan was fully repaid.
With interest?
At an interest rate of 8%. At the time, I think the market was around 4 or 5%. I was on the part of the State Council that made that decision. I'd say that's pretty good value for members, wouldn't you? 8% loan. And I think, Mr. President, at the time, when I was asked about it down at the Royal Commission, my comments were it was like lending money to a family member, because guess what? Unions affiliate to the Labor Party by virtue of paying affiliation fees, and for that they get political buy-in. They actually get to have a say in the policies of the Labor Party and the philosophy of the Labor. I mean, heaven forbid that a party created by the working class people would have an affiliation with the trade union movement. Inconceivable, surely. The idea that unions would get 50% of the floor on Labor conference and feed directly into policy and influence that policy probably more than any other working class Labor Party in the world, heaven forbid that they would have that influence. So you have situations, Mr. President, where when the party gets divorced from reality, from its working class base, like it did in Queensland not too long ago, the union movement campaigns against the party on the basis that they've lost their way, and then the party realigns with its industrial base, does the right thing and ends up winning government. What do you think's happening here in New South Wales? What do you think's happening in the Hunter? We're running a person who has fought for working people all his life, has probably worked harder than most people have ever worked in this parliament, on the tools, in the mines, and then works his guts out representing them, and the people in here want to drag his name through the mud. Why? Because they were embarrassed. They were embarrassed that they had to throw 2 coal miners under the bus, and 2 wasn't enough, so they want to throw 3 under the bus. The honourable member, Mr. Latham, will well know how all that works. This is a bloke who was hoisted onto the precipice of power, on the precipice of being PM, on the platform of a party who took trade union money to campaign on behalf of working people, and now wants to reject that philosophy and that party which gave him that career and that potential to represent working people. Now we're expected to believe he's had this, because he's had this Trumpian epiphany, that he somehow stands up for working class people. They don't buy it. The people of the Hunter won't buy it. And all you've got to do, Mr. President, is look back at what we've seen over the last couple of months. There was a coal miner up there by the name of Simon Turner, who their colleagues in the federal parliament, I'm talking about Senator Malcolm Roberts, Pauline Hanson, the idea that they wouldn't have had conversations with them, or that a personality and an intellect of the force of Mr. Latham doesn't somehow have conversations about what their federal policy is, be his belief. This is the bloke who was trotted out time after time on behalf of those people up in the Hunter and elsewhere on casualised labour, about how companies were using the fact, and my colleague Adam Searle pointed this out before, the classification of casual labour as an excuse. These are people who are on full-time patterns of work. So you employ people on a casual basis, they're effectively working 40 hours a week, full-time pattern, which would normally avail them of things like annual leave, long service leave, sick leave, all those things that a full-time employee can well expect to get. And the fact that they were classified as casual under the laws that they backed in they backed in by their corporate donors who don't affiliate, who don't nail their colours to the mast. So we don't know who really backs them. We don't know where the political interests lie, because they don't have the guts to say, we donate to the Liberal Party and we believe in their political philosophy. But when a trade union does it and nails their colours to the mast, you've got an issue with it. But these are the people who introduce laws who truncate the ability of casual workers to claim those entitlements, and they want to come in here, and try and retrieve that embarrassment by besmirching Drayton. So this is what Turner had to say, and I'll repeat it again. I was disgusted and felt betrayed at the highest level. It's a complete backflip from representing Hunter coal miners. They made no changes to the IR bill. This is One Nation backed in by the Conservatives in the federal parliament. What Senator Roberts actually did is make casual employment legal for everyone in Australia. Everyone who goes for a job can now legally be put on as casuals, regardless of the hours they work. Then, Mr. President, if one coal miner being thrown under the bus wasn't enough, we had to go for two. There was the erstwhile candidate for One Nation, Stuart Bonds, coming out and speaking out against his own party, One Nation's voting stance against the people he wanted to represent. That is, coal miners and casual workers. Disendorsed. Why? Because they disagreed with Mr. Bonds' pro-worker stance. This is Bonds now. I can't justify it. I won't justify it. It doesn't appear to be a 180. It is a 180. It's not enough to fight for mines and mining companies. You must fight for the miners inside the mine as well. Mr. President, actions speak louder than words, and people need to look at the actions of One Nation in relation to working people. They've thrown two coal miners under the bus, and now they attempt to throw a third under the bus, our candidate, Jeff Drayton. The first coal miner, Turner, they used in an attempt to fool working people into thinking they care about the paying conditions of casual workers in the Hunter. Then they throw him under the bus and vote with the federal government against the ability of casuals to claim their entitlements. The second miner, Bonds, who, as I said yesterday, I happened to come across a couple who the wife of that couple cleaned for Bonds. And she cleaned his house, and she told me how he got skewered. It was by text message saying, "You're no longer required." We all remember what happened a few years ago on the wharves when those maritime workers were sacked by text message, and the outrage there was then by doing that. Well, these people are doing the same thing. Then they want to come in here in Parliament and try and produce the reputation of a bloke like Drayton, a stand-up bloke who'll do a great job in this Parliament. And the Labor Party often gets criticised for not throwing up working class people who are in reality. Well, I've got to tell you, this bloke's in touch with reality more than most people in this chamber are. These are people who come from the tools and know what it's like to work for a living and know how to represent working class people. The fact is, Mr. President, One Nation have voted along with their partners in the federal government, the Conservative government, in this mass crime against hundreds and thousands of workers with the federal Conservative government for that IR bill, which disenfranchises thousands upon thousands of casual workers. So if people in the Hunter want to know what's going on here, don't look at what people say, look at what they do, look at what they did in the federal parliament. And in terms of this, these issues that were raised about the Royal Commission, the judge who presided over that Royal Commission, who tried to drag trade unions' reputation through the mud and destroy the trade union movement, was one Hayden Dyson. Dyson Hayden. We all know the reputation and credibility of that person. You want to come in here and use the judgments in that kangaroo court to try and besmirch the reputation of people like me, who know what it's like to work for a living and represent working people. We won't cop it. We won't cop the hypocrisy. You can keep coming in here day after day after day and doing this. We're up for it, because the people in the Hunter will see straight through it, and they'll vote for our candidate Drayton. Whether or not they vote in volumes enough to get us over the line, I don't know. But he's the best candidate we could have chosen because he's the real deal. And if you guys want to go him every day, we're up for it. Let's sit for another week.